I'm honored to be here. And Bill, thanks for calling me and inviting me to come here and speak to you about the story of my son, Leotta, Officer Noah Leotta. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a tragic thing that happened in my life. This was not the plan. I wouldn't want to be here talking to you. This isn't something that my wife and I had just recently retired, and life was good. We were talking about our futures. We had two beautiful children, one a police officer, one a teacher, doing well in life. But that all changed in an instant. So what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about is the story of our tragic situation, what we've done, what's going on with drunk driving. And so people will understand what a serious problem it is. And why it was that a 3-time repeat offender of drunk and drug driving struck and executed my son. Why there's so many drunk drivers that basically just get slapped on the wrist. And the irony of it is that Noah was out there trying to protect us from the exact crime that killed him. That's the irony of it. And I can't change what happened to my son, but I can try to make certain that it doesn't happen to anyone else. I can try to make a difference. That's what Noah was trying to do. He was trying to make a difference. So I could continue Noah's legacy, trying to get the drunk drivers off the road and save lives. It's all about saving lives. That's what it's all about. That's what Noah was out there trying to do. And, I can exactly remember the time. It was a week before the accident. It was literally a week before the accident. And it's really not an accident. Because an accident is not preventable. So it's really not an accident. But we were walking our dogs. Noah with his dog, and he's got a puggle. You may have seen the flyer that I put out there and his picture, and that's his dog. His girlfriend had taken that picture at Great Falls, and that's one of our favorite pictures. It was in the fall of that year, 2015. And I have a husky, much bigger dog. So now we've got both dogs. So we're blessed with Noah's dog now. So Thorin is his dog's name. Noah was a fan of the Hobbit movies and Lord of the Rings and all that. And so Thorin was the king dwarf. So that's the name of his dog. So, but on that walk, Noah told me a few things. He said, first of all, that he had picked up somebody for drunk driving that night, and the guy wanted to get off. And Noah said, look, dude, I can't let you off. But you can do better. You can change. This does not have to be the end for you. And I'm going to read you something later that I suspect it was that person. But he told me that the laws were too weak and the judges are too lenient. That's the crux of the problem. And I can tell you, and I'm not going to say who, but I was at a meeting just the other week, and the first thing that came out of somebody who's at very high levels within the county, the first thing that came out of their mouth was the judges. That's the problem. The judges, just getting slap on the wrist. But Noah, even though this was, I could tell it frustrated him, and I think it frustrates most officers, it didn't let it get to him because he knew that he was still out there making a difference. And he also told me that he loved being a police officer. His exact words were, "Dad, I don't know what I would have done in life if I wasn't a police officer." So he's telling me all these things literally a week before he was struck. So I don't know if he was foreshadowing, if he was getting me prepared. I don't know all of that. I don't have the answers to that. But it led me to where I am today. Him saying those things were like a charge to me. That if I didn't continue carrying on his legacy, then I wouldn't be doing right by him. And he was out there just doing like most of the police officers do. They just want to be out there protecting and serving the public. All the men and women in blue will have that in them. And they're special type of people because they know the risks that are involved in the job. He knew the risks. I can tell you he knew the risks. And we talked about them before he went into the police force. I can tell you that my wife did not want him to become a police officer because of the dangers. Not because of the job of being a police officer, but because of the dangers. And I guess any mother is thinking that way. And we had to talk about it, and I talked to him. I said, "You've got to let him do what he wants to do." So we did. And we're very proud that he found the profession that he loved. And he was willing, as all police officers are, to run to danger instead of running away from danger. For us, without any reservations. So, one thing I do want to tell you, that next time you do see men and women in blue, thank them for their service. Thank them for what they do. And I can tell you, it does make a difference. I saw it happen with my son. He was meeting me at a restaurant one night. He was coming off duty. And so he was in uniform. He was walking over to the restaurant, and I was just inside the door. And somebody pulled up in their car and stopped him, blocked him. And they rolled down their window. And they had a conversation, a short conversation. And then when he got in, I said, "What did they want?" I said, "Dad," he said, "they thanked me for my service." That's what they did. And it meant a lot to him. And he said, "You don't realize it, but that actually happens quite a bit." And that meant more to him than anything else. Just that thank you, that simple thank you, meant a lot to him. And so it was the right thing for him. But how did Noah get involved with the police? I was telling Bill that he took a class at Montgomery College in criminology, and that sent him on his way. And he was hooked, and he had to do certain things and so forth, and he connected with the police, and actually he became an intern for the Montgomery County Police Department. And did that for over a year, full time. He was working 40, 50 hours a week through the night, carrying a full workload at Montgomery College. It was him. And he had the benefit of interning with Officer John Romack. And I don't know if any of you know who he is, but he's known throughout the country as the DUI king. He is the person that knows how to, as Noah would say, knows how to find the drunk drivers and make a difference. That's John's passion. And that's how Noah became keenly aware of the very serious problem of drunk and drugged driving. That's how he became keenly aware of that. And so Noah entered the police force, and that was where he focused his attention. He really wanted to get into that part of the work, going after the drunk drivers. So in December 2015, Noah volunteered for the DUI task force, the holiday task force. And he was accepted. He was one of the youngest ones accepted to that. He was thrilled. And actually, my wife, we were out the night that Noah was struck. We were out with some friends at dinner. And we were talking about our children, as most parents would. And we were talking about, and my wife was specifically saying that she felt better. Because instead of Noah running into a domestic dispute where you really don't know what's going on, so when he was on this task force, getting the drunk drivers off the road, she thought it was safer. Not realizing how dangerous that is. How many officers get struck by drunk drivers? It's a tremendous amount. So on that night of December 3rd, when Noah was out of his car, and he had pulled over somebody on Rockville Pike, a suspected drunken drug driver. So when he had pulled somebody over, that's when another drunken drug driver struck him when he was outside of his car. This person was on Xanax, had used marijuana twice that day, and had been drinking at Hooters on Rockville Pike for about 4 to 5 hours, consumed a minimum, we know, because it's on tape and so forth, 10 drinks. His blood alcohol content was 3 times the legal limit. And I can tell you, because obviously we've gone through the court proceedings, that the person that struck him doesn't even remember the accident. Doesn't remember hitting him. Matter of fact, he wanted to have some regression analysis when he was in jail because he wanted to remember what happened. He didn't even remember striking his son. But Noah sustained massive brain trauma, and he was in a coma almost instantly. We never got to hear words from my son again. That's some of the hardest things for me. Because I just want to hear his voice again. I just want to have a conversation with him again. Like when we were walking our dogs. I see pictures, but I can't have those conversations. So in an instant, we had a blessed life that was turned upside down. That life that my wife and I had been talking about was over. All because of a drunk and drugged driver. In 7 days, we held vigil in the hospital, praying for a miracle that just never came. And then we had to make the most awful decision a parent has to make. Where we had to decide to take him off life support. But we had one more gift that we knew Noah, because we had talked when he entered the police force, if something happened, that he would want his organs donated. And there were no injuries to Noah. Noah, except for the head, there were no injuries below the neck. His body was fine. Actually, I had thought when we got that knock on the door, that when they wouldn't tell us how serious it was, they just hustled us down to the hospital But I was thinking, wow, Noah, when he's not home or not with his girlfriend, he's in the gym. He's going to make it. And his body was fine from the neck down. So we did donate his organs. And we do know that there are some children alive today because of that. But on December 10th, 2015, a special young man at age 24 was taken from this world much too soon. All because somebody was reckless and irresponsible and got behind the wheel, drunk and drugged, and he just ripped out our heart and soul. And what for? What for? Drunk drivers are deadly and violent domestic terrorists on our roads. And they're playing Russian roulette with everyone all the time. Every time of day. You may think only at night. No, it's not only at night. On our roadways, there are over 10,000 people a year. 10,000 that lose their life senselessly and are executed by drunk and drug drivers. And what's scary is that number is on the rise. After all these years, it's on the rise. You would think that wouldn't be the case. But no. For some reason, it's going in the wrong direction. Every 2 minutes, someone's injured by a drunk driver, and every 51 minutes, somebody is killed. Think about that. There are 300,000 incidents of drunk driving every day in this country. And 1/3, 100,000, are repeat offenders. And when somebody gets caught the first time for drunk driving, it's not their first time they've been drunk driving. They've driven about 80 times. 80 times a person drives drunk before they're caught. So it's usually their 81st time. And though law enforcement, that number, 300,000, they can't keep up. There's not enough. So they're only getting about 2% of the drunk drivers off the road. 2%. It's not because of lack of effort. It's because there's not enough police. And there are too many drunk drivers. That's the problem. But remember, drunk drivers don't discriminate. And they're playing Russian roulette with everyone on the road all the time, every time of day. And shatter lives. Shatter lives instantly. And what for again? I always say, what for? And as I said, an accident is not preventable. But drunk driving is preventable, and the outcome is predictable. But what gets me is that in Maryland, drunk driving is not considered a violent crime. And I say to our officials that make the laws in Maryland, tell that to my son and the other 10,000 people that die each year at the hands of drunk drivers. Tell that to the numerous people that are injured by drunk drivers, that it's not a violent crime. But because it's not a violent crime, we didn't even use drunk driving as the offense for the person that executed my son. We didn't do that because that had a maximum sentence of only 5 years. So we went with reckless driving, which had a stiffer penalty of 10 years. We've got a problem. And because it's not considered a violent crime, that criminal only has to serve a quarter of their sentence. That means he probably will be out in 2.5 years, probably sometime next year. I will try to prevent that by sending an impact statements and talking to the parole board, but likelihood that it's unsuccessful. Matter of fact, people were surprised and were getting us prepared when we went to the sentencing that it wasn't going to be the full amount. Everybody was shocked that he was given all 10 years. Because the judge had said at that time, after listening to his family saying what a wonderful person he was, and he may be a wonderful person to his family. Drunk drivers may be good people, but they have a flaw, and they're not considering everybody else. And though they may be good in this area, they've got a real problem that you need to take consequences for your actions, and there needs to be deterrence to prevent it from happening again. So the judge basically, this was a 3-time offender, said the leniency is over, and gave him all 10 years. And thank God for that. But Noah had the distinct honor and privilege of representing the men and women in blue, but all the victims of drunk driving. But it shouldn't take a public death for changes to be made. But that's typically the way it happens, but it shouldn't be that way. So to commemorate Noah's legacy, we took up the charge that had been going on for 7 years. 7 years they were fighting in Annapolis to get Noah's Law passed. 7 years. It took a perfect storm for it to happen. And it happened, as my wife said, because we shamed them. That's why it happened. But we didn't do it alone. And it was a 3-month roller coaster ride, up and down. I'd be down there talking at a press conference. I got home and I get a call. Something just went upside down. It's falling apart. You got to come back, and another press conference the next day. I'd be there till midnight, sitting there in Annapolis so they'd see me. I didn't say anything, but they knew I was watching. Luckily, my wife and I were retired. I'd get a call at 5 o'clock in the evening. Rich, can you come down here? And I'd just be sitting there till midnight in Annapolis watching these hearings going on. So they knew I was watching. They knew I wasn't going anywhere. But I had the help of so many people, the governor, the chief of police, all the first responders, family, friends, the community. We couldn't have done it alone. Ben Kramer, Jamie Raskin, who sponsored the bill. So many people. And all those years, 7 years of people getting down there trying to make a change and couldn't make it happen. It shouldn't have taken Noah. He's just like anybody else. That's why that picture there is one of our favorite pictures. It's him out of uniform. That one on that flyer. It's him out of uniform. He's anybody. He's anybody. So on October 1st, 2016, Noah and all the victims of drunk driving in Maryland were reborn with the passage of Noah's Law. And basically that law, if you don't know about it, it primarily requires interlocks on cars for convicted drunk drivers for a period of time. If it's the first time, it's 6 months. If it's the second time, it's a year, so forth and so on. It also increased suspension times. But you really need that interlock. And it's really a righteous law. It truly saves lives. It makes a difference. Because that person can't start their car with this interlock device on it. And it changes behavior. And nobody goes to jail. They can live their normal life. But yet they were fighting this for 7 years. I still don't understand why they were fighting this for 7 years. It was money. That's what it came down to. It's defense attorneys in Annapolis who make money defending drunk drivers. That's what it's about. That's what was happening. And we had to shame them and make sure people knew that. And I, gosh darn, remember my first press conference. I was told, and I just hated myself after that press conference. I was briefed, don't mention any names. Don't say any names. So I tiptoed around everything, knew who the problems were, didn't say who it was, and I went home feeling miserable. Because the media, they were all there. They were asking me, who did this? It was this person. I said, I don't know. I just don't know who's doing this. But it shouldn't be happening. Well, the next time I was in front of the cameras, nobody was there with me. Nobody was there to tell me, don't say this and don't say that. Who was with me was Noah. And that's when I let everybody know who the problems were and spoke everybody's name clearly and loudly. Mike Miller, Joe Valerio, Mike Bush, the three amigos there all lined up preventing things that will save lives. All the time, and they still do it today. Now, the roadways are safer with Noah's Law, but we need to do more. We have to do more. We need to make sure we stop this scourge. So we do it through many different means. Through Noah's Law and administrative law, through punitive laws and measures, through criminal laws,